Luffy becoming Pirate King. To put it simply, pirates want absolute freedom and change, while Marines want control and stability. And so Luffy's path to becoming a legendary pirate is full of battles with the Marine organization. However, during this mini arc about Luffy's childhood, it's actually explained to us that his grandfather, who raised him instead of his parents and who is one of the most powerful and famous Marines in the story, always wanted Luffy to follow in his footsteps. Now in the end, Luffy of course chose to follow in the footsteps of Shanks instead, quickly becoming a pirate and a prime target for the Marines. But that still leaves a very interesting question on the table. What if Luffy never got inspired by Shanks? What if instead of a pirate, Luffy had become a Marine? So our story starts during Luffy's childhood, where he originally got inspired to become a pirate in the first place. Of course, we could simply assume here that Luffy never meets Shanks in the first place. However, I think we still want Luffy to eat his devil fruit that Shanks brought with him. Instead, Luffy needs someone else to be inspired by before Shanks ever arrives on his islands. So for our specific scenario here, I want to assume that Luffy's grandfather Garp brings along one of his former students to visit Luffy, the Marine Admiral Aokiji. That's this guy here with the ice powers. In the actual storyline, Aokiji has always been sympathetic towards Luffy. He was relieved that Luffy took in Robin and allowed Luffy and the Straw Hats to escape multiple times. Basically, throughout the story, we're being told that Aokiji is basically the ideal Marine who has a fair sense of justice and truly cares about the safety and the happiness of the people. So Luffy, who badly needs a role model, sees him using his epic ice powers and beat up some bad guys, which I think would be a great alternative to Shanks. Now, saying goodbye to Luffy's grandfather Garp, Aokiji makes Luffy promise to one day become a great Marine as well. And so now Luffy's new goal is not to become Pirate King. Instead, he now wants to become the Marine Fleet Admiral. And with that, we have the decisive change in Luffy's story. And from here on out, the rest of his childhood can stay pretty much exactly the same, training with Garp, Sabo, and Ace. Shanks then still arrives at the island, Luffy still befriends his entire crew, and he still eats his devil fruit because he gets too hungry. But what happens next is where it gets really interesting. Before we can talk about what happens with the other Straw Hats and how the story overall plays out from here, I need to make two assumptions about the main storyline that are very likely to be true but haven't officially been confirmed yet. Assumption 1 is that Garp is a member of SWORD. In case you don't know, SWORD is a secret group within the Marines that doesn't like how the Marines are being controlled and used by the corrupt world government of the One Piece world, and instead want to create a much more just and good Marine Corps. And assumption 2 is that Shanks knows that Luffy is important to change the world and